try out this Telnet or SSH? Later we'll talk about the SNMP. We won't do this here. Okay. Again, just remember these things from yesterday. You log in, you're in the view node. Then you go to the config node, and you can also go to the debug prompt. Okay. CLI looks like that. Let's see it for real. Okay, so I logged in admin Trango. Obviously, I use these radios a lot. I change little settings in them, so they're not going to be exactly what you would get, but very similar to what you would get from the factory, okay, in terms of what it's already programmed for. So, first thing I could do is I could type the model command. I can check my model. Well, I'm lazy. I don't really like typing model, so let's just see what I could do. Oh, I could just do MO and hit tab. Also notice that when I did the M and I hit tab, it showed me what options I had. Okay, so I could do model or I could do MSE. I could shorten that. I could just type a few characters of it. Okay, I don't have to type the entire word. Okay.
That and tab.
Yep. So you can type something. You could hit question mark. It'll give you a little description of what you're looking at there. You could hit question mark and see all the commands you can do. Okay.
Is question mark the same as help?
Question mark's going to be the same as help. I think help just tells you to hit question mark. Yeah. So use the question mark. In my case, one of the first things I would do is always check the model. I can look to make sure I'm logged into the radio I think I'm logged into, because by default they're on the same IP address. So if you plug them both into a switch without changing the IP, guess what? You have no idea which one you're going to be logged into. Okay, so use the model to check that. Okay. I could look at the IP config. It's actually IP config, and see what my IP address is set to in my management interface. Okay, my out of band. Okay, I can also see the MAC address here for both the in-band, or the out of band, and the in-band management. Okay. In my case, I'm using IBM, so I could look at the in-band management via IBM. I can see what those settings are. Okay, so lots of times those are the first things you need to do. Let's say I needed to actually change the IP address. So I would go into the config node, just type con password Trango. Okay. If I wanted to change the IP address, I type IP config and I hit question mark. What do I do? Okay, IP question mark. Oh, I'm going to put in my IP address. Okay, 192. Whatever I'm changing it to. Okay. Question mark. Oh, that's where the subnet mask goes. Whatever the heck my subnet is. Oh, okay. Now I hit return. Okay. Likewise, if I wanted to change my subnet mask, I'd look at IP config question mark, or not subnet, but the gateway. Go gateway, and I could put in my necessary gateway there. You don't see the question marks that I'm typing, but put a question mark at the end that tells you what you can do. Now that I've changed my IP address, of course I would lose the access to it. I'd then switch over to my other radio, change the IP address in it, and then I can plug back into both of them and go from there. Okay. Now that I can talk to the radios, I've changed the IP addresses. What I'm going to want to do is get a link going. Okay, so out of the factory, my default op mode is off, so I would have to go op mode on. I'd have to do the same thing on both radios. Then I could do something like link test. Boom. I already happen to have a link. Okay. Let's say that I completely had defaulted this radio and it had no configuration in it. I would have to do ODU power on, because when I ran the model command, I would not have a model for my ODU model and serial. Okay, it would just be blank. Okay, but I would go ODU power on. It would take about 30, 60 seconds for it to come on. Then the first thing I would do is check the model to make sure that it actually detected it properly. That's the model I'm expecting it to be. Okay. You'll notice that we also show you the transmit frequency range here. Right? So when I go to type my frequency, which is just FREQ, and I go in here to put it in, let me see what I have. So 17740 is what I go to type in. If I was to type 19300, it's going to tell me that I have a problem with that. Eventually. Okay. So I get an error. It says timeout, didn't receive the response from the ODU. If I look at my model command, I can see right here my transmit frequency min and max. What I tried typing in is not in that range. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let me go frequency 17740. Oh, that's better. Okay. You only set the transmit frequency, it detects the duplex, and it sets the receive frequency accordingly for you. Okay, just like in the web interface. If we needed to change the duplex, you'd use the freak duplex command, and you'd put in a different spacing. Okay. You need to do that. You need to check to make sure, because only certain models will actually allow you to do that. You'll notice that my duplex happens to match part of the model number. Okay. This is an HP1 series. It's an 18 gigahertz ODU, and the duplex is 1560. Okay. Finally, it's a subband 3, and it's an A-side, which means it's the low transmit.
I've never really checked that. That's not something you would normally.
You really should never have to check the
Because
duplex.
off the top of my head, I don't know what the duplex is for these freaks.
If you wanted to test the telnet, I just telnetted in. There's one on his desk. If you want to play with that, because I know you were asking a lot of questions on that.
Oh yeah, you can telnet or SSH into that apa.tringosys.com like we did yesterday. If you want to play with anything there.
Yeah, but he says Windows 7 doesn't have it.
Well, you had.
You have to download PuTTY then.
Yeah, I have PuTTY though.
Yeah, you use PuTTY and SSH into it.
Back to the duplexes. So is that different for every freak? Like 6 is different from 18 to 23. I imagine the range is.
Yeah, and it's typically set by the model. There are a few exceptions where you have to change it, but not so much in the U.S.
Okay.
It's very rare. It'd only be if they come up with what they call a non-standard duplex, a non-standard frequency where, for whatever reason, they couldn't license anything normal, but the coordinator was able to figure out, well, if we did this and this,